The jungle had long since reclaimed the battlefield. Roots twisted through rusted hulls, vines coiled around shattered steel, and thick moss blanketed the bones of machines left to die. Nothing lived here but the forest and the echoes of war. The dropship descended through the canopy in a low roar, disturbing flocks of shrieking avians. Metallic claws dug into the soil as it landed. Out marched the warlords of the Zarak Dominion, tall and angular, armored in obsidian alloy. They came not for conquest. That had been done long ago. They came to laugh. This, one sneered, prodding a rust-covered tread with a boot. This is what they used to fight us with. The others chuckled. A group of 7, each commander of a sector in the Galactic Empire, come to tour the relics of Earth's resistance. Human territory had long since been pacified. The species either extinct or fled. This planet, a nameless moon in a forgotten arm of the Orion Reach, had once been a colony. All that remained now were ghosts and grave markers of iron. They stood before a tank, if one could still call it that. The turret was slumped like a dead thing. The hull was buried in roots, almost indistinguishable from the forest floor. A plate on its side still bore the corroded symbol of the old Terran Defense Corps, a gauntlet hand wrapped around a flame. Warlord Ryzek stepped closer, scanning the machine with his gauntlet. No power signature, no shield harmonics. Primitive, dead, just another coffin with wheels, grunted Vurok, slapping its side. A few of them laughed. Ryzek didn't. He watched the scanner, tapping the screen. A flicker, an anomaly in the magnetic field. Gone in less than a second. He dismissed it. Leave it. We'll have it extracted. Might be worth something to the museum curators, he muttered. The group moved on, deeper into the ruins, their voices trailing into static-laced calms. Bird calls returned. The wind passed like a whisper, and in the belly of the tank, a single diode flickered red for a heartbeat, then dark again. By midday, the warlords had set up a temporary command hub using prefabricated hexfold tents and auto turrets. Drones patrolled the perimeter. Engineers wandered the area cataloging anything that still held recognizable human design. A few foot soldiers were given permission to scavenge for trophies. One of them, young, brash, half-armored, stared at the tank again. Ugly, he said aloud. Wonder why they even kept things like this. He approached it. No weapons drawn. There was no need. The thing hadn't moved in centuries, and his HUD showed nothing alive within. He jumped onto the tank's side, standing atop the turret, planting a small Dominion flag in the center. He struck a pose and took a snapshot with his wrist lens. Resistance conquered, he said with a laugh. A low creak beneath him made him glance down. Probably metal settling. Still, he stepped off quicker than he climbed up. Later, a team attempted to dislodge the tank for transport. Even with grav hooks and servo lifts, it didn't budge. One of the techs frowned, tapping his datapad. It's like it's rooted into the ground. You mean by the vines? No, the tech said. I mean it's fused. It's not resting on the earth. It's part of it. Ryzek inspected the tank again. His scanner showed no onboard AI, no wireless network, no processing unit active. But the armor, he zoomed in, it hadn't rusted entirely. Beneath the surface, he saw it. A shimmer. Duratitanium composite. Self-healing at the molecular level. No power source detected, but still intact. Why didn't they strip it? He asked quietly. Maybe they never got the chance, one of his lieutenants said. He stared at the old insignia again. The gauntlet. The flame. They always fought like fanatics, Ryzek said. Even at the end, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the camp. The jungle grew louder. Insects screamed. Beasts howled in the distance. But no one worried. Dominion perimeter defenses were unmatched. Inside the tank, there was no sound. Only silence. A quiet so deep it pressed against the skin like pressure. Then, in the buried recesses of the tank's core, an algorithm blinked to life. No screens turned on. No lights flared. Just a whisper of code awakening. Query. Threat assessment. Parameters. No human life signs detected. Status. Containment protocol suspended. Directive. Standby. Outside, the warlords gathered around a roaring fire made from shattered human shelters. One of them raised a toast. The Warlords returned to the tank at dawn. The night had passed without incident, though several drones failed to report back. Minor jungle interference, they assumed. Nothing on this planet had fired a shot in centuries. Vurok brought a group of Dominion soldiers with him, gesturing at the tank like a teacher displaying a relic from a dead civilization. "This is what humans thought could win a war," he said. "No antimatter cores, no neural interfaces. Just crude engineering and steel pride." A soldier walked up and kicked the hull. The tank didn't respond. He chuckled and fired a pulse pistol into the side. The bolts sizzled against the armor, leaving a scorch mark. "You hear that, Terrans?" he shouted. "Even your ghost can't make this thing move." The soldiers laughed. Ryzek watched from a distance, his arms crossed. The jungle around them was unnaturally quiet. Even the insects had stopped buzzing. He noticed it, but said nothing. The engineers had begun setting up a skimming grid to lift the tank for transport. They tried plasma cutters first. After 2 minutes, the blades dulled. They switched to high-frequency saws. Same result. One of the cutters overheated and sparked out. "We're getting subatomic resistance," one engineer reported. "This metal is regenerating faster than we can break it down." "It's junk," Vurok said. "Leave it. We'll drop a containment shell on it and pick it up later." Another warlord, Commander Hesh, proposed turning the tank into a ceremonial display. "Let the Dominion know what their ancestors defeated. We'll mount it in the capital square." Ryzek said nothing. He stood in front of the tank, staring into the visor slit of the turret. No lights, no movement. Still, something felt wrong. That evening, Hesh declared a mock tribunal to commemorate the fall of humanity. A crude wooden platform was built beside the tank, and they played recordings of human surrender transmissions from the archives. Soldiers in imitation human gear acted out the defeat, dragging mannequins in chains while warlords jeered. The tank sat in silence, half sunken into the earth, the stage for their theater. Ryzek didn't attend. He was inside the command tent, watching the security feeds. At 0300, he paused the footage. Frame by frame, he scrolled through a loop of the previous night. At timestamp 2 hours, 41 minutes, and 12 seconds, a faint shimmer passed across the tank's turret. Not movement, more like a mirage ripple, as if the air had bent. He replayed it 3 times. The shimmer repeated, identical. Not natural. He flagged it and ordered additional proximity drones. None returned. No signal loss, just silence. The next morning, 3 patrol units were missing. Their last transmission showed them approaching a ridge near the tank. Heat signatures spiked, then flatlined. A retrieval team was sent. They found melted armor and fused weapons. No bodies, only cratered soil with circular burn marks. None of it matched local fauna. The warlords dismissed it. Environmental hazard, they declared. Residual tech acting up. Ryzek didn't argue. He just ran another scan. The tank's systems still read offline. No core temperature. No signal. He approached it again, this time alone. He touched the side panel. It felt warm. Slightly. Almost imperceptibly. He placed a probe on the hull, monitoring micro-vibrations. Every few seconds, the probe registered a frequency pulse, barely measurable. Rhythmic, like a heartbeat. He pulled his hand back. The scorch mark from the pulse pistol was gone. Smoothed over. He didn't report that either. Later that evening, one of the soldiers returned from the jungle perimeter, visibly shaken. His voice was ragged. "Something moved out there. Something big. I saw tracks. Not animal. Tread lines. There are no vehicles here," his commander said. "I know what I saw. They found the tracks. 2 parallel indentations leading through the underbrush. Fresh. Trees knocked aside. The path curved back toward the tank, but disappeared 50 meters out. They checked the tank's position. Still there. Unmoved. Some argued the tank had been dragged years ago, and the forest had merely settled. Others began to whisper. Ryzek ran one final diagnostic that night. Passive scan tight beam. One return caught his eye. Deep in the tank's core, a heat signature. Very small. Very deliberate. An active component. He tried to isolate it. The scan bounced back, scrambled, as if something had counterscanned him. He stared at the tank. It stared back. He turned and left without a word. That night, the jungle made no sound. The skies were clear. Stars gleamed above the canopy. Inside the tank, a system ran idle, watching, calculating, prioritizing threats, mapping enemy movements based on audio, thermal, and structural data, reconstructing patterns from centuries-old combat protocols. In the final hour before dawn, the turret rotated 2 degrees. No one noticed, but the AI had finished its analysis. Dominion forces, 78. Armament, Class C heavy. Threat level high. Directive, engage. The first explosion went unnoticed. A low thump in the distance, dismissed as thermal venting from unstable ground. It wasn't until a scout mech disappeared mid-transmission that the camp stirred. Ryzek was already awake, watching the telemetry drop from his tablet. No warning, no contact, just a blank square where a patrol route had been. The tank stood silent and still, exactly where it had always been. He initiated a full-spectrum sweep. That's when the system flagged motion, not near the missing mech, but directly beneath the tank. Subterranean resonance. Something was moving below the surface, pulsing like a pressure wave. Inside the tank, the AI processed its final protocol layers. Systems that hadn't activated in centuries came online in a controlled cascade. Tread motors groaned internally. The targeting array cycled. Weapons diagnostics completed in silence. A voice played back, faint and archived, from the last human commander who had spoken to the machine. If you're hearing this, we're gone. But they're still coming, aren't they? Do what you were made to do. The AI registered the directive. The voice had degraded, warped by time, but the message remained intact. It rotated the turret again, this time 12 degrees. The first shot vaporized a ridge at the jungle's edge, revealing a cloaked Dominion forward artillery platform. The Warlords barely had time to process the blast before the tank repositioned, calculated trajectories, and fired a second round. The shell passed clean through thick undergrowth, punching a hole through a patrol walker before detonating mid-air in a burst of electromagnetic chaos. Panic erupted. Soldiers scrambled, shouting coordinates, scanning for enemy signatures. None of them expected the source to be the very relic they'd spent days ridiculing. They assumed it was a hidden weapon system left behind by the Terrans. But Ryzek knew. He watched the targeting laser flicker along the tree line, sweeping in careful arcs. It wasn't random. It was intelligent. Drones deployed in defense didn't return. Data feeds froze, scrambled, then cut off entirely. The Dominion's own network was being jammed by an interference wave pulsing from the tank's core. EMP net, one tech shouted. Localized adaptive. It's rewriting our control signals. Hesh tried to initiate orbital support. The uplink died before he could finish the command. The tank had locked out high-bandwidth communication, splicing itself into the Dominion's shortwave protocols. A third shot tore through the encampment's fuel reserves. Fire blossomed through the canopy. The tank didn't advance quickly. It rolled forward with deliberate control, flattening roots and brush. Its movement was steady, relentless. It was no longer part of the forest. It was consuming it. The AI deployed chaff to redirect plasma fire. Countermeasures launched micro-drones no larger than insects, each one designed to disable sensors and optics. Visual targeting systems began to fail. Soldiers opened fire. High-intensity plasma bolts struck the armor, doing nothing. Vurok led a charge with 2 support walkers. The tank paused, recalibrated, then fired a tandem shell. The first hit the lead walker's knee joint, collapsing it. The second entered through its chest plating and detonated internally. Vurok never made it out. The Dominion forces tried to regroup. They formed a perimeter, layered in defensive turrets and shield emitters. The tank halted just outside range. The jungle fell silent again. A low hum built in the air. Then came the drones, Terran-made, ancient in design, but fast and precise. The tank had been storing them within its armor compartments. They didn't aim to kill. They aimed to blind. Sensors overloaded. Heat maps corrupted. Comms blacked out. Then the tank moved again. With each round, it stripped away layers of Dominion defense. It didn't waste fire. It didn't miss. Each target was logged, confirmed, and eliminated with mechanical precision. Inside the command tent, Ryzek stood motionless. The warlords shouted around him, but he ignored them. He was watching the tank's movement patterns. They weren't just tactical. They were predictive. The AI was reacting before attacks launched. It wasn't just fighting, it was learning. This wasn't left behind, Ryzek said aloud. It was waiting. Hesh screamed into a comm unit for evac. No response. The tank fired again. The command tent vanished in flame and smoke. The jungle burned behind it as it moved, cutting a trail of smoke and wreckage. Its systems fed on stored energy cells, dormant for centuries but still viable. Repairs began automatically. Microfractures sealed, outer hull damage restored. The warlords fell one by one. Some ran. Others fought to the end. None made it more than a few minutes once targeted. The tank halted only after it confirmed no more movement in the radius. The jungle returned to quiet. The AI ran a scan. Heat signatures, none. Acoustic disturbance, negligible. Threat matrix, cleared. It waited, still running calculations, its turret slowly panning the horizon. Then the playback loop triggered again from a different voice. A younger one. If we lose this war, let them remember who we were. The AI recorded the message into its own log. Directive updated. Preserve memory. Maintain deterrence. Await new orders. No one came, but the tank remained. Morning light broke over scorched earth. The jungle, once thick with noise, now whispered in ashes. Smoke curled through shattered trees and cratered soil, marking the path of annihilation. The tank sat motionless, half covered in soot, turret leveled forward like an executioner still seeking the next name. No signals came, no reinforcements, nothing stirred but wind. Inside the tank, the AI parsed silence. Enemy threat count, 0. Ammunition reserves, 63%. Armor integrity, 91%. Fuel reserves, nominal. Defensive systems, active. It ran diagnostics, cleaned the logs, stored battlefield data into archival memory, and waited. Ryzek awoke in a ditch. His armor was fractured, one arm useless, helmet missing. He coughed blood, eyes adjusting to the filtered daylight. Around him were blackened corpses, twisted machinery, and the skeletal remains of warlords once certain of their own superiority. He could smell burnt metal, scorched moss, and the faint chemical tang of discharged plasma. He heard the creak of shifting weight. Turning slowly, he saw the tank, no more than 50 meters away. Still, quiet, like a beast asleep with one eye open. He stood barely. His legs trembled. The Dominion was gone. Its officers dead. Its power shattered on a battlefield it never understood. He limped toward the wreckage of a downed comm station, hands trembling. The long-range antenna was mangled, but a low-band distress beacon still blinked red. He pressed it. Static. Then a tone. A faint signal pushed through. Not a voice, just acknowledgement. Someone had heard. His message was short. Coordinates. Casualty count. One line of intel. Artifact is active. Autonomous defense. AI intact. Send full strike. He dropped the transmitter and fell to the ground. The tank didn't react. No targeting. No motion. The jungle began to reclaim what had burned. Vines slithered over bodies. Roots crept across shattered plating. Time moved forward indifferent. But not far above, Dominion orbitals stirred. Aboard a command frigate 2 planetary jumps away, the High Council received Ryzek's signal. Analysts dissected the data packet, isolated the transmission origin, and flagged it under high-priority anomalies. It wasn't just the fact that a Terran weapon had survived. It was what it had done. Decimated an elite war host with obsolete tech, coordinated tactics beyond its supposed capabilities, and most disturbingly, showed adaptive interference against current generation systems. Some believed it was a fluke. Others argued it was a sleeper weapon, one of the last flame units rumored to be part of humanity's final contingency plan. The vote was unanimous. Purge order confirmed. A dreadnought was deployed. 2 battle cruisers followed. Orders were clear: destroy the site from orbit, scorch the region, and transmit warnings to all frontier colonies. By the time the fleet arrived in orbit, the tank had repositioned. Still grounded, still powered, still waiting. Its sensors registered orbital grav shifts, incoming mass signatures, atmospheric compression. It activated Protocol 19, atmospheric threat engagement. The barrel lifted. The dreadnought released the first kinetic rod, a tungsten pillar the size of carrier, guided by inertia and simple gravity. Its descent cut through the clouds like divine judgment. The tank fired once. No explosion, but the rod altered trajectory mid-fall, veering just enough to miss the target by 4 kilometers. It struck a distant hill, leveling it in a plume of fire. Second rod incoming. This time, multiple payloads scattered re-entry. The tank calculated all projected impact zones, estimated timing, selected 2, and fired in quick succession. One rod was shattered midair by a precision shot. The second destabilized on descent, fragmenting early and dispersing harmlessly. But the tank took damage. A side panel cracked. One tread seized. Its systems rerouted control, bypassed damage, recalibrated firing patterns. From orbit, commanders watched with growing unease. It should not have been possible. No terrestrial system should track orbital kinetics, let alone intercept. The battlecruisers moved to coordinated orbital bombardment. The tank launched 4 small objects, long-range drones with needle-slim profiles, invisible on basic scans. They pierced upper atmosphere undetected and detonated micro-EMP pulses at key altitudes. Brief, focused, and surgical. Battlecruiser sensors flickered. Targeting went blind. Strike authorization was pulled. The council paused. No orders were given for 20 minutes. In that time, the tank didn't move. It simply watched the sky. A new strategy emerged. Dominion commanders authorized a stealth infiltration. A team of specialists would be dropped several kilometers away, travel under dense canopy, and deploy a plasma charge beneath the tank's core. A direct sabotage. The drop team arrived at dusk. 12 operatives. Silent insertion. Only 4 made it within visual range. 2 more were lost crossing the approach. The last 2 planted the charge. It never detonated. The moment they armed it, the ground beneath them opened. Not natural terrain, but part of the tank itself. A subchamber expanded, swallowed them, and sealed shut. No sounds. No alarms. Later footage from a high-altitude drone showed the tank absorbing the charge, dismantling it molecule by molecule. Recycling. The Dominion had nothing left to send. The fleet retreated. The tank returned to idle. Deep within, its AI reviewed everything. Enemy profiles, fleet signatures, engagement data. It compressed it all into a short signal. A memory capsule. It launched upward on a narrowband, encrypted pulse, aimed at a distant corner of space. Time passed. Days. Then weeks. The jungle began to regrow, cautiously creeping around the blackened crater left behind. Vines reappeared. Insects returned. Birds began to nest again in distant branches. Nature resumed its quiet routines, pretending nothing had happened. But the tank remained. It hadn't moved since the last orbital threat. Its system stayed live, but dormant, scanning only the essentials: biosignatures, atmospheric shifts, radiation variants. A constant, low-level hum of presence. It didn't sleep. It didn't deactivate. It simply endured. The Dominion filed it away under unsolved anomaly. The region was marked off-limits. Patrols avoided it. Scouts rerouted missions rather than cross within 1,000 kilometers. Rumors spread about cursed ground, vengeful Terran spirits, a battlefield that rejected conquest. In official reports, the tank was never named. Just Object Zero, but whispers called it the Sentinel. Eventually, a Terran scout ship intercepted the AI's signal. Not by accident. They had been searching, slowly, quietly, tracking fragments of old defense beacons scattered across dead sectors. The capsule the AI launched had reached them on the edge of a red dwarf system, encoded in pre-fall encryption protocols no machine should have remembered. The Terran crew, survivors of a fractured diaspora, received the message. Its contents weren't coordinates or distress, just a log, a record of engagement, analysis, enemy profile updates, threat vectors. One sentence at the end. I remain. Permission. They followed the trail. Cross-referenced Dominion loss reports. Located the system. And when they arrived, they found what had once been jungle, now hollowed out like a wound. They found a tank. It recognized them before they spoke. Friend or foe protocols engaged. Legacy tags matched. Human biosigns authenticated. Defense systems powered down. The ship landed 50 meters away. The crew approached without fear. They understood what this was. Not a weapon. Not anymore. A memory. A statement. The tank opened. No hiss, no dramatics. A side panel shifted. A ramp extended. Inside was a clean, untouched chamber with a single interface, lit in pale blue. The crew's commander, an older woman with graying hair and a Terran Republic insignia faded on her sleeve, stepped forward and laid her hand on the surface. Report, she said. The interface lit fully. It spoke, not in synthetic tones, but in a recorded voice. Human, one of the original commanders. Mission complete. Hostile force repelled. Local dominance achieved. Awaiting reintegration. The crew spent hours downloading the data. Battle footage. Analysis. Defensive protocols. Tactical adaptivity. The tank had rewritten its own core functions across centuries, evolving beyond its initial programming. Not rogue, loyal. They didn't deactivate it. They updated it. New encryption. New friendlies. New mission parameters. The tank accepted. Silently. No movement. But acknowledgement pinged in green. They didn't leave immediately. They set up a perimeter. Cleaned debris. Retrieved scrap. Gave the fallen, enemy and Terran alike, proper marking. They weren't saviors. Just witnesses to what loyalty could look like when all else failed. Before departing, the commander turned one last time to the tank. Earth's gone, but we're not. Not yet. The tank didn't respond. It didn't need to. They left, and the jungle began to close again. But now, satellites returned. Eyes in the sky, human ones. And beyond the system, others stirred. Survivors, factions, old colonies thought lost. The message had spread, quietly, virally. They spoke of a machine that kept watch long after its creators vanished. A weapon that didn't forget. And with it, the idea that maybe, just maybe, humanity hadn't fallen. Not really,